In this video, I'm looking at the DUNU Studio SA6. Let's get into it. What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews, and the SA6 comes in a fairly small box here. It's quite utilitarian. It's unlike their DK series, which sort of had these big boxes, and it's a pretty basic setup. What you get inside is you get this nice case, but I do have one serious gripe with the accessories. Now, as usual, DUNU gives you a nice supply, a nice variation of various ear tips. There are 3 different kinds in total, going from extra small, small, medium, and large, but there is not a single extra large tip in the bag. I mean, why, DUNU? Why do you do this to us? Please find it in your heart to give us at least one pair of extra large tips for those of us with man-sized ears. But with that aside, this is the same carrying case that comes with the Studio SA3. And now let's have a look at the earphones themselves, and we'll zoom in as usual. Okay, so here is the SA6 shell. The faceplates here are made from stabilized wood, which means, first of all, they're beautiful, as you can tell, and secondly, every single one is unique. I'll show you the other side here. They both have their own unique patterns, and yeah, that's throughout the entire range. Every single set is unique. The only downside of that is you never know exactly which color you're going to get, but they all look dope as far as I'm concerned, so it doesn't really matter. So in terms of build quality, these are just fantastic. You can see, well, starting with the face plates, they are gorgeous. Inside, I don't know how well you can see it there, but it's just immaculate. Remember, there are 6 drivers stuffed inside here, including a 3-way crossover. And you've got the tuning switch here as well. While we're here, I'll quickly talk about the tuning switch. When the switch is off, you basically get your signature presentation, which is basically very linear, very neutral. With the switch on, it adds about 1 to 2 decibels to the bass, so a little bit of body overall, but the change is very, very minuscule. It's very small. It's almost like, I don't know why they even bothered to include the switch. The difference is that small. But apart from that, you get a 3-bore nozzle design, and the nozzles, they don't really have a lip, but I didn't have any problems with ear tips falling off. They feel all nice and tight on there. And in terms of comfort, these are very nice. You've got your pretty standard pseudo custom shape going on there. Noise isolation is very good as well. And yeah, these are very comfortable, and I can wear them for hours at a time. And now for the cable. You know, when DUNU makes a cable, you're in for a good time. So here we've got an 8-core braided cable. It's absolutely beautiful. You've got a really nice uniform braid there. You've got these polished aluminium components here, including the 0.782 pin connectors there. The only thing I don't like about this cable is the aggressive curvature of the ear hooks. I really don't see any need for that. I wish they'd just make it a lot less aggressive and a little bit looser, a little bit more supple. But the great thing about this cable, as with many of DUNU's sort of higher end cables, is the modular termination system. So the cable comes with 3 different terminations. This is the 4.4 balanced, this is the 2.5mm balanced, and this is the 3.5mm single-ended or unbalanced. And just like the DK series, it's a simple matter of disconnecting the plug and reapplying the new one. So I've just switched from the 4.4 to the 2.5, and it's as simple as that. DUNU makes some of the best cables, stock cables going, and this is no exception. It is absolutely fantastic. So with all that stuff out of the way, let's get started on how the SA6 or Studio SA6 actually sounds. Now, it's basically a very neutral presentation. It's very linear across the board. It does have a slight V-shaped signature, but from the bass all the way up to the treble, it's fairly neutral. I would say there is a little bit of a lift in the bass, and that sort of gives the overall presentation just a little bit of warmth, a little bit of musicality, and it takes that analytical edge off of the sound. So I'm going to break it down now, starting with the bass. And you know, I'm usually a bit salty when it comes to pure BA units and their bass, but in the case of the SA6, I'm going to give it a pass because the quality of the bass is just so darn good. And you can apply all the audiophile superlatives here. You know, it's very textured, it's very fast, it's very controlled. It's a nuanced bass. The only drawback is, of course, you don't get that really satisfying sub bass presence that you do from a dynamic driver. So in terms of sub bass rumble, you get a very light one. You sort of hear it more than you feel it. So it's not the ultimate in terms of a big fat bass response, but it is a very tight bass. It's nuanced and it is overall very, very good. There's a slight emphasis on the sub bass compared to the mid bass, and that's where the sort of overall sense of warmth comes from. And it's, as far as balanced armature bass goes, the SA6 does it really, really well. Moving on to the mid-range, and the mid-range is really, well, I was going to say it's a strength, but actually the sound in general of these is its strength, and that's a bit of a giveaway. But coming back to the mid-range, what really stands out to me is the accuracy, the accurate tone of the mid-range. It's an uncolored, it's raw, but it's at the same time very smooth. It's a musical mid-range. The note size is very natural, a little bit rounded. There's a little bit of warmth in there to make it sound lifelike. But at the same time, there's no excess of warm air in the stage. The instrument separation is fantastic. The transients are fast, but it is it's a musical mid-range. Male vocals are perhaps just slightly on the thinner side. They're not really robust and full-bodied. But having said that, they don't sound anemic or thin or too dry. But it's the tone of the mid-range that is really outstanding on this earphone. Like with the DUNU Studio SA3 here, it kind of focused mainly on the vocals, and everything else got sort of thrown to the roadside, and I just didn't like it because it just had the tonal balance was just off. But with the DUNU Studio SA6 here, it's a much more well-rounded unit. The sound is just excellent from top to bottom. The tonal balance is just right. And coming back to the mids, you do get excellent instrument separation. The mid-range resolution is very good, but it's the timbre, it's the accuracy of the notes, it's the uncolored and neutral nature that still somehow manages to be smooth and organic. That is really the draw card here. And finally, talking about the SA6 treble now, and the treble is really another strength of the SA6. It is really, really nicely done. It is not particularly forward in terms of tonal balance. You know, like I said, it's a fairly linear from top to bottom. The treble is kind of energetic, but it's very, very smooth. There's no harshness, there's no sibilance, although it doesn't smooth over any poor recordings, or it doesn't smooth over inherently sibilant tracks, but it's not harsh by nature. And I think that's largely in part due to the dip in the frequency response at about 6 kilohertz. But it has very good extension. It's a nice airy treble. It has the lightness and airiness of the treble sort of opens up the soundstage in terms of width, and the quality of the bass and the overall tonal balance gives the stage a good amount of depth as well. So it's quite a rounded soundstage, fairly expansive in terms of size, but because everything is so clean, the clarity is so very good, the organization of the soundstage is very good. It's kind of like a holographic 3D presentation. The air between instruments and elements is very clean. There's no overlapping warmth there. But having said that, like I mentioned earlier, the overall sound is still smooth, and that's just I don't know what else to call it except it's just a very smart tuning. So let's do a couple of quick comparisons here. And I'm not going to compare the SA3 because I think that these are great for monitoring vocals in a professional sense, but as far as music listening goes, I do not like the SA3. I'll put those aside. That's why I was really concerned about the SA6, but when I actually listened to them, I was very relieved to find that these are much more all-rounded, well-rounded sound, whereas the SA3 basically does vocals very well and everything else is an afterthought. So let's have a look now with the Fearless Audio S8F. This one actually has 8 drivers per side and a 4-way crossover. And I used to kind of think of this one as a kind of neutral bright sound, but in comparison with the SA6, the Fearless is much warmer. It's got much more mid-bass emphasis, and the mid-range, the lower mid-range in particular, have a lot more body and a lot more fullness and roundness. So it has a warmer sound. It does have a similar treble response, but because of the extra warmth that it has in the lower registers, the treble comes across as a little bit more laid back. And as a result, the SA6 has better instrument separation. It has better mid-range resolution, and it's overall it's a much more accurate monitor than the S8F. And now this is the Panther Audio Aura DX4, and this is a hybrid unit. I love these shells. Look at that. It is so beautiful. But this is a hybrid unit. It's got a single dynamic driver and 3 balanced armature drivers. And again, like the Fearless S8F, the Aura DX4 here has a much warmer presentation. Because of that dynamic driver, it does move more air in the sub bass, and it does give a more satisfying sub bass rumble. And the overall signature of the Aura DX4 here is actually more linear than the SA6. The SA6 kind of has more of a slight V-shaped presentation, where this one is fairly even across the board, and that has its pluses and its minuses. In terms of the benefits of that kind of tuning, vocals are more forward, and male vocals in particular are a bit more full-bodied and warmer, but it kind of lacks the dynamics of a V-shaped signature. And I think that's why V-shaped earphones are so popular, because you get the dynamic range, you get that emphasized bass and treble, slightly recessed mid-range. By cutting a bit on the mid-range, you're able to bring that clarity. The treble comes forward a bit, and it just makes the sound a little bit more exciting. Now, a lot of people often search for mid-centric earphones, but when they find them, they often find them a little bit dull. And it's because of dynamics that is the case. But I still love the DX4, but it has a warmer tonality. It's not as dynamic. The treble response is similar again, but because it has that kind of extra lift in the bass, and because of the mid-range is so forward, the treble is actually in line with the mids and the bass. So it doesn't seem as forward in the mix. It doesn't have the same amount of sparkle or airiness. Although in terms of soundstage, the Aura DX4 has excellent width, but a little bit less depth, I would say. The SA6 here has a nice rounded soundstage, but because the presentation is just so clean and everything is so well defined, the soundstage is very pinpoint accurate. The treble is precise, and it gives a sort of a holographic image of the stage. So to sum up, what I like about the SA6, I would like a little bit more bass quantity for my personal preference, but I love the quality of the bass. The mid-range is absolutely superb. One of the best mid-ranges that you'll find in this price range. Very accurate, very natural, musical, uncolored, but at the same time also very smooth. And the treble, smooth again, but with just enough energy to make things lively. It is not harsh or sibilant, but it does get close on occasion, but it's never actually harsh. And it has a fantastic sense of airiness to it, a lightness, and a bit of sparkle, a bit of shimmer. And it renders a good amount of detail. This is a very detailed earphone. What I don't like, well, I already mentioned the bass. My personal preference leans towards a bit more bass presence. But apart from that, the only thing I don't like is the absence of larger ear tips in the package. So come on, DUNU, do us a favor for us bigger eared people and give us at least one pair of extra large ear tips. Okay guys, that's about it for this video. So if you liked it, give it a thumbs up, Parfam audiophile style. And if you're new to the channel and you want to see more reviews like this in the future, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Link to the full written review in the description, along with links to all my social media channels and my Discord. So yeah, that's it guys. So until next time, I'll see you later.